Hey guys, welcome to Camelot Fabrics. My name is Heidi Pridemore of the Whimsical Workshop, and I'm going to be partnering with Camelot Fabrics to introduce to you their newest product line, Behind the Seams. This is a product line full of foam, fleece, fusibles, and stabilizers. Over the next few months, I'm going to give you tips, tricks, and tutorials on how to use all of these products. For our first video with Camelot Fabrics, we're going to be doing a tutorial on a drawstring bag, and we're going to use 3 different stabilizers to give us 3 different looks on the same bag. This will be a comparison between the FormPro, the CloudFill Fleece, and the FuseEase Light. I wanted to do this as an exercise in this video to see what each bag looks like when you use a different stabilizer on the inside. I also want to run through the tutorial on how to make these bags because I think they're super handy for small crafts, for knitting, for crochet, for jewelry, for intimates. You can take them on trips with you, you can use them in your craft room, you can use them anywhere you want, or you can use them as gift bags. So let's get started on the tutorial on how to make these drawstring bags. Today we are going to be making this little drawstring bag, and it has pockets on the inside. This one here is using interfacing, but we're also going to make one with FormPro single-sided fusible, and we're going to make one with fleece single-sided fusible. Then we're going to compare all 3 bags, and then you can decide what bag will work best for you. I have a use for all 3 different types of bags, but I think until you see them all in the same bag, it's kind of hard to know which one you may like. So we're going to get started. Like I said, this one was made with FuseEase on the inside, FuseEase Light. It is a very collapsible and portable, and you can throw it in your suitcase. It's easier to travel with. But I want to see how these work out with the foam and the fleece, and then we can decide which way we want to go. So we're going to set this guy aside. What you're going to need, obviously you will need 2 pieces of, if you're doing the whole exercise with me, you'll need 2 pieces of CloudFill Fleece with single-sided fusible cut 8 by 14. So you need 2 8 by 14 pieces of CloudFill Fleece single-sided fusible, and or 2 pieces of FormPro single-sided fusible, same size. If you decide you want to make the collapsible bag, we're going to use 14-inch squares of FuseEase Light for the entire backing of the fabric, where these are only going to go halfway up the bag. Just so you know, the FuseEase Light is cut as 14-inch squares versus the 8 by 14-inch pieces of foam or fleece. So there's that for you. Now for fabric, you're going to need 2 fabrics. About a ½ yard of each is more than enough. You're going to cut from your main fabric 2 14-inch squares and then 2 4.5 by 14-inch strips. Then from your lining fabric, you will do the same thing. You're going to cut 2 14-inch squares and 2 4.5 by 14-inch strips. This is going to be your lining. This is going to be your outer. These strips make the interior pockets. Just on a side note, if you so choose, you could put the pockets on the outside versus the inside. I like to have them on the inside so things don't fall out while I'm traveling. And that's how we're going to make both bags. The first step is to make the pocket places. So the first thing you need to do is place the outer fabric and the lining strips right sides together. You'll have 2 of these. And then you're going to go over to the machine and you're just going to sew across the top and bottom. Do not sew on the sides. Same thing here, top and bottoms, not on the sides. So we're going to go ahead and get those sewn. And then for the other one, we'll also do the same thing. Alright, so here we go. We've got them sewn. I did use a 1/4-inch seam allowance, which is used throughout the bag assembly if I didn't mention that earlier. So here are our pockets. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to turn them right side out. And we didn't need to do the short sides because they're going to get caught in the seams as we build the bag. So there's no reason to have a double seam there. So you just pull these right side out, just like that. And then we'll take them over to the iron and we're going to press them nice and flat. So there's that one. And then to press them, what I like to do, just as a little tip here, is at first we'll get it so that the seam is all laying flat and not twisted in there with my fingers. And you can see there where the light blue, the dark blue is popping out. I just very gently roll it with my fingers, and I do finger press this first. It makes it a whole lot easier and safer. You're not burning your fingers on the iron. And then if it looks like it's gonna pucker, again, I just use a hard surface and kind of just roll it with my finger, get it to where I want it, and I'm gonna finger press it. And then I'll repeat on the other side. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all 4 of these pocket units done up, and I'll show you the next step. All right, so I've got these all pressed. I've got them ready to go. I've got them paired up with their linings, the way they're going to be on the bag. The other thing I did is I went ahead and I top stitched only one edge, just what I consider the top edge. If you haven't got a top stitch foot for your machine, I highly recommend investing in one. It looks like this. It has a flange, usually right here in the middle. And what it does is when you're sewing, if you can move your needle position over, the edge of, let me pick it off the fabric so you can see it. The edge goes against the pocket edge, and then you move your needle over to the furthest to the left, depending on which side of if you're sewing on this side, it would go to the left. If you're going to put the piece this way, it would go all the way to the right. But once you have it in there, then you can just top stitch it, and the piece of fabric touches the flange and your top stitch comes out looking super straight. If you like doing a lot of bags, a lot of dimensional items, a top stitch foot is definitely worth investing in. So, all right, so we got our pockets, we got our linings. The next step we have to do is we have to position the pockets onto each piece of the lining. And again, I will do this one off camera. We'll do this one for you. So the first bag, there's the 2 lining pieces and the 2 pocket pieces. What you have to remember is when we make this bag, you can see here's the bottom and here's the seam where the 2 of them meet. The pocket has to go much higher up onto the lining piece so it doesn't get rolled into the bottom of the bag. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a ruler, and what I need to measure up from the bottom 3 1/4 inches. So I'm putting the 3 1/4 inch on the bottom of the lining. Sorry for the light reflection. And then I'm going to take my pocket and push it right down to where that is. You could also draw a line, but I'm just going to go ahead and use my Wonder Clips. And I'm going to clip this in place with the ruler, staging where it goes and double checking I didn't move anything. I have done some where it's like 1 inch above the bottom seam, so it kind of floats on the bag, but for today we're just going to keep it very simple for us. So we're going to put these on, and then I need to mark the pockets because I would like my pockets divided inside the bag like this so all my pieces don't fall over. If you're using this for knitting and crochet, you may want skinnier pockets for needles. If you're using it for sewing, you might want a little bit wider pocket to put, like if you're traveling with a rotary cutter or something a little bit wider or bulkier like scissors. So it's up to you how you want to do your pockets. How I have divided the pockets though is I started at 4 1/2 inches from the one side, and I'm using a Frixion pen. I love these pens, but I do recommend testing it on your fabric to make sure that it will go away with heat. If not, a chalk pencil will work as well. And I'm just drawing the line all the way up the pocket. And then the next one, I'll put my notes on the table so I can actually read them. So the next one is 2 inches away from that line. So we'll just make our mark there. And then we're gonna go 3 1/2 inches. I found this was the nicest divider of the pockets. It gave me one skinny, a couple wider ones, and it didn't really get involved with the side seams. So we're gonna do 4 1/2, 2 inches. Again, just drawing the line all the way up. Now if you have that top stitch foot I was talking about, you can now put your needle at center position and use the flange right on the line. It'll give you a nice straight line. I also use that because I have a dual feed machine, meaning it has feed dogs top and bottom. I use that foot also to do stitch in the ditch, so I do like that. A little bit about the fabric we're using today. This is Mixology from Camelot Fabrics, of course. And it's a beautiful mix of prints and textures, and then they also have the fresh solids that we're using in tandem with them. So we've got our pockets marked. I'm going to do that on all 4, mark the pockets. 2 for one bag, 2 for the other. And then I'm going to go over and I'm going to stitch down these lines, and I'm going to then stitch the bottom of the long pocket. That will hold this in place. It'll give us our dividers, and we'll have the opening on the top. So we top stitched this first so that it was nice and finished, and then we will do the same thing now through the lining to hold the pocket in place so your stuff doesn't fall right through the pocket. So gonna go do that, and we'll be right back. Now we have our pocket pieces on. You'll notice these are still not sewn. It's okay. We're gonna catch those in that side seam, and then we've got these pockets here, and then these will become pockets. So we've got the first two for the first bag stitched up, and the other two for the other bag stitched up. So first things first, to do our linings, we're going to layer them right sides together and make sure that you've got everything lined, raw edges lined. And what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the sewing machine, and we're going to start here at the top, and we're going to sew down, and we're going to stop right there. Then we're going to leave like a 3-4 inch opening, start right back up here, and sew back up. And we're going to do the same on both of them. Now that we've got our two lining pieces, we need to do our box corners so that it has a nice square flat bottom. So you're going to measure up and in 3/4 of an inch, because that's how high up we put our pockets. If you want it to have a wider bottom, you'd need to move your pocket strip up so you could make this square bigger. When we go ahead to cut this, I'm going to use scissors instead of my rotary cutter because I have more control, because you really don't want to cut into the bottom of your pockets. So once you've drawn your box corners, you need to carefully cut them out with your scissors. And I've already done the other one, so and you do not want to cut your bottom of your pocket. So your pocket should be right there on the inside. Now what we're going to do to make our box corner is we're going to fold this up, and we're going to align that bottom seam with the top like that. And then I'm going to clip this, and then I'll go over to the sewing machine, and again using a 1/4 inch seam, I'm going to sew right across of that, and that will give me the box corner. And I'm going to repeat that on this side as well. So again, you saw I pull this up, I'm bringing the bottom seam up to the side seam, I'm nesting those two seams together and kind of straightening out my material so it lays flat, and then I'm clipping the edges. You can already start to see how the bag has now got a square bottom. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, I will get those sewn. I'm going to repeat that on this piece as well, and then we will have our linings complete and we're ready to do the inner bags. There we have it. We have our little box bottom on our linings. Now I'm going to turn this one right side out so you can see it, but you are going to want to leave them inside out for bag assembly. But for this one, I'll just show you what it looks like here. And it's okay if your pocket gets a little caught in the seam. It's totally fine. It'll all line up on the inside. So we've got those two linings. All right, now we're ready to build our outer bags. So we have our two outer bag pieces. Make sure that if you have a directional print that it's going in the correct direction for you. And now we need to choose our interfacing. If you're going to make a collapsible bag, you would have a 14-inch piece of FuseEase Light, and you would put the FuseEase Light onto the back of both the front and back of your outer bag, and you would have your iron set to wool. It's good to have water in it for steam, but do not spray water on as you're pressing it on, and it will just press down beautifully. I am so impressed on how well the fuse dots work on these products with a home iron. So you would have that for that one. We're not going to demo that one, but we are going to talk about this one. The next bag is going to be the FormPro. The FormPro also has fuse dots on one side and nothing on the other. And we're going to align the FormPro with the bottom half of our fabric, like so. And then you're going to go over and you're going to iron this to both the front and the back. The FormPro, it's very thick, so you don't want to try to press through the foam. You have to press fabric side up, and you can put that on there like that. And for the FuseEase, you probably want to use a pressing cloth. You don't really need to use one for this, but we're going to go ahead and we'll press these down. Again, the settings on the irons for any of these products is going to be wool. You are going to set it up with some water in the iron for steam, but not for spraying water. So we'll do that for this bag. And then for the CloudFill Fleece bag, we're doing the same thing. And again, this is half the thickness of that one, but you can put this on here. And I would still press from the fabric side. And when you're pressing, I would start in the center and smooth it out to the edges. And you can choose, in my case, I am choosing to go all the way to the edge. But you could also cut those pieces a 1/4 inch smaller so it's not in the seams. That is completely up to you. All right, so I've got these all pressed down. I have to say, every time I use the behind the seams products, I am so impressed on how easy it is to press this onto my fabric with my home iron. I've used a lot of different interfacings and I do struggle sometimes to get it to stick. These have all sticked beautifully, so I have to say that I am very impressed by that. So we've got our 2 foam ones and we've got our 2 fleece ones. Now we're going to put these right sides together, aligning the foam and or fleece edges. And we need to now mark our channel for our drawstrings. Because remember, this has a really cute little drawstring on it. So we've got these right sides together, and I'm going to go ahead at this point and I'm going to clip these together. This is another great part about working with foam. It does add structure and stability, but it also collapses really nice. So it's not really too hard to clip your layers together. And the same thing happens at the sewing machine. It will compress for you to get it sewn, and it's not a super battle over there doing that. So it gives you some rigidity, it gives you some thickness, but it's not hard to work with either. So it's a win. All right, one more over here. Now we need to draw our drawstring channel marks on here so that we don't sew the opening for our drawstrings closed. So what we're gonna do is we're going to take a ruler and a pen again, and we're gonna measure 1.5 inches from the top edge and make a mark. And then we're going to go 1 more inch down, or 2.5 inches from the top, and make a second mark. We're gonna flip it over. We're gonna do the same thing. So 1.5 inches, make a mark. 2.5 inches, make the second mark. Now, when I go over to the sewing machine, what I will be doing is I am going to start at the top and I'm going to sew down to this first mark, and I'm going to reinforce my stitch right there because that's going to end up being an opening. And I'm going to skip my drawstring channel, and I'm going to start here, reinforce that stitch, and I'm going to stitch all the way around until I come back over to here, reinforce, skip the drawstring, start here, reinforce, and do that. That will put the front and the back of the bags together, and then we will be ready to do our box corners and put the whole thing together. So let me go ahead and get these stitched up for both bags, and I will be right back. We have our 2 linings done, and we have our 2 outer bags sewn with the opening for the drawstring. So the next step is we need to get the outer bags to have box corners just like the lining. So we're going to take our ruler, and we're going to measure in 3 1/4 on each corner, and we'll cut it out. We'll sew the box corner the same way, and then we'll be ready to assemble. So we have the box corners sewn on both the foam and the fleece bag. So these outer bags, the first thing we need to do before we turn them right side to is I'm going to take them over to the ironing board, and I'm going to press open the side seams on both sides. And let me get this open here so I can show you why. So we're going to press it open, and that'll give us a nice clean hole with a finished edge. So here's the right side. Once we press that open, it'll give us a finished edge for our drawstrings. So I'm going to go ahead, press these side seams open, and then I'm going to turn these right side too, and then I'll be right back. Alright, so I've pressed the side seams open, and here's a nice tip for you. Don't worry about this part of the bag on either the foam or the fleece. Only press the seam open from where the foam stops to the top of the bag. It's going to make it so much easier, and you don't need to fight with that. It's going to be fine. It'll lay naturally. But this is the important part. We just want this area clean, and then it makes it even if you press it all the way down to the foam. So now that I've done that on both of these, we're going to turn these right side out. All right, so first things first, your lining is inside out. The pockets should be on the inside, and we're going to put the outer bag in here so it becomes right sides together. The outer bag is turned right side out, the lining is inside out. We're going to align our side seams, and we're going to clip it together with Wonder Clips, and you're just going to align that seam right there. Make sure that the outer bag seam is left pressed open, even though the lining is pressed to the side, and that is fine. It'll actually give it a little more strength on that side. And we're going to do the same thing on this side. So I always line up my seams whenever I'm making a bag. I line up the seams first, and then I work my way around the top edge and make sure my raw edges are aligned. So just push that in there. I love using Wonder Clips for bags too, because you're not poking yourself, and they're just easier to hold shapes that are not flat together. I always use pins for flat items and clips for dimensional items. So just another little tip for you. So we get this all clipped, and then I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam. I'm going to sew all the way around the top to get the 2 layers attached. I'll repeat that for this bag as well, and then we'll come back and we'll get our drawstring channel made. We've got both of these sewn. Now this is where that hole in the bottom is so handy, because now we need to pull the bag out through the hole, and that will give us our outer bag with our inner lining. So there is the fleece one, and here is the foam one. Just goes, when it gets bulkier like this with the foam, just go slow and pull. Again, the foam is thicker, so it's you don't want to rip your fabric while you're trying to turn it right side out. All that work would be a waste. So now we've got that. So now is when we can pop out the corners in our lining, make sure everything looks good. Now all our seams have matched. And then we're going to top stitch this opening in the lining closed by turning in, bring it up here, turning in a 1/4 inch on either side. You can take it over to the iron and press it. I usually just finger press it. And it's just a little futzy. You just got to kind of get it lined up. And then clip it together, and then we're just going to go over and we're going to top stitch it. I will get some matching thread on my machine so it's not quite so obnoxious. But we will just straight stitch right across that to close it up. And I'm going to do that on both of these. And then we're ready to do the drawstring. So I've gone ahead and I have pushed the lining in. There's the top stitched lining that we did. And I pushed this in, and I pushed out the corners and made sure everything lined up. And then I took it over to the iron and I pressed it flat so that this edge is nice and finished. I am going to top stitch around that edge, but before I do that, I'm also going to mark my drawstring channel, because we're going to have to sew 2 lines through a single layer. We're going to have to sew 2 lines all the way around the bag that will keep the cord from sliding inside the bag. So it's easier to just mark that and then go over and stitch 1, 2, 3 lines on the bag and have it ready for the drawstring. So to mark the lines we have to stitch for the drawstring, what I like to do is I like to actually open up the little hole on the side, and I mark the top and the bottom, and the same thing on this side, and I line up the 2 marks, and at the same time I check that it's even with the top edge of the bag. And then I know from the earlier we drew those lines on the inside 1 inch apart. So I'm literally just going to move my ruler down and use that first line that I've measured everything up against, and I'm going to draw that line. And then I'm going to again measure 1 1/4 from the top of the bag, because again that was what we did on that side, and now those lines should match. And I draw my line, and then I measure down 1 inch from that line. Again, making sure that it's at least in line with our open hole for the drawstring, which it is right there. So now I'm going to take this bag over. I will top stitch around the top edge. I will stitch all the way around the top line and the second line. You're just going through one part of the bag and working your way all the way around. Don't accidentally do this and go through both. It won't work. So I'm going to do that on this one. I will finish up the foam one, and then we'll be ready to put in our drawstrings and be done with our little drawstring bag. Okay, we are in the home stretch. We have our bags done. All they need are the drawstrings. So there's lots of choices for drawstrings. You can make your own by cutting a strip of fabric as at least 36 inches long and 4 times wider than your tie. You fold in the edges to the center and then fold it in again, top stitch. There's lots of tutorials out there on how to do that. I'm choosing to use either cording. This is 1/4 inch cording. That is what we used on the maroon bag. But for these two bags, I think what I'm going to do is use ribbon. This is satin ribbon, 1/4 inch wide. I think it would be really pretty. We've got our bags ready. We are ready to do the drawstrings. We have lots of choices for drawstrings. On this one, we used 1/4 inch black cording. It worked perfect. It's really cute. And then it frayed at the edge where I tied the knot, giving it a nice little detail that I wasn't anticipating, but it works. You can use 1/4 inch satin ribbon, which for this bag, I think I'm going to use this really bright yellow to make it super whimsical. So you can do that. You can use your own fabric and make ties out of them. You can, there's lots of tutorials out there on how to do that. We're not going to cover that in this video, but if you want to leave a comment below and want to see that, I can always add that to another video. Or we can also use 1/2 inch satin ribbon, which is what I think I'm going to use in this one, because I think the 1/2 inch ribbon will give it a nicer finish. I believe that if we do a 42 inch piece for each tie, we'll be fine. So that is what I'm going to cut here. You need 2 ties for each drawstring. And I'm going to show you this on the thicker one, and then I'll do the thinner one again off camera. And then we can compare our bags and how they stand up and how they work and the pros and cons of using the different interfacings in the bags. So we've got those. That one I'll do after. So this is a bobkin. Okay. It's a ball on the end and a slot on the other end. So this is what it looks like on the end. Okay. And you could put a thread through it or a skinny cord and do that. This is thicker than that, so I use a safety pin on the end of my bobkin. And there's lots of tools to pull cords through. You could just put a safety pin on the end and not even have the bobkin. A bigger safety pin would work. But now I have this big wide thing that I can thread through the bag to get the tie. So for each tie, we need to start on this side for the first tie. We're going to go all the way around. We're going to skip that hole on that side, and we're going to come back out on the same side that we go in, but across from where we went in. So hang on, let me show you here. When you get it started, you have to kind of pop it in the hole, make sure the whole thing is in the hole. But the bobkin is very helpful, especially like on this side, to make sure we get by that hole without poking through. And we're just going to work it all the way around. You see how fast and easy this is. It's not a real expensive notion to have in your toolbox, but I highly recommend having it. But here you can see this is where we started. And now I'm going to come out right across from where we started and pull my ribbon through. And then I'm going to take this off. Now, when it is open, completely open, that is how you know how long your ribbon needs to be. So I'm grabbing both ends of the ribbon and making them nice and even, and then I am pulling the bag straight, so now they're nice and tight, or nice and straight. Okay, so isn't that going to be pretty? Now we need to do the second one. And we'll do the same thing we did before. We're going to kind of straighten this out so it's laying flat as it's coming out. And we're going to grab the 2 ends and line them up. And then hold the bag and pull. And it'll just straighten out your ties. And then you need to go into the channel and kind of get it straight in there as well. So there we go. So there's the first one with its drawstrings. and I'm gonna go finish the edges, and then we will be ready to use this bag. So that's bag 1. And then bag 2, I'm just gonna go ahead and finish, and then we'll be back here to compare the 3 bags and see what we think. All right, now that we have all of our drawstring bags completed and finished, let's talk about the stabilizers that we used in each and which one I think works best for what I'm gonna use it for, and give you an idea of what your bags will look like depending on what you put inside of it. So to start out with, we are going to start with the one that's using the FuseEase Light. This is a very, very floppy bag, but it is also very low profile. It folds up really small. It could go somewhere with you if you know you're going to need a bag somewhere and you don't want to have a huge bulky bag with you. But it also it's just not going to take up a lot of room. If you're looking for a bag that has a little bit of shape to it, this isn't going to do the trick for you. But if you're looking for a lightweight bag that you can take on a trip, throw in a suitcase, this is a really nice alternative. It was really easy to make. All of these bags were easy to make, but in this case, because you put the FuseEase on the entire piece, you didn't have to kind of measure. You could just pop it on there and just work with it. I really do like this one for travel, and so this is a win for a travel bag. Next up, we have the CloudFill Fleece. This has got more padding to it. You can feel, or you can't feel it, I can feel it. You can see it's got some thickness to it. It does add some protection depending on what you're putting in here. If you're going to use it for electronics or something fragile, you could put it in there. It still has all your little pockets in there, but and it holds its shape pretty well. It does flop a little bit, so if you really want a bag to stand up, this is not going to be the one you want to put on the inside. But if you are looking for a bag that is low profile, this again folds down nice and small, but have some added protection and padding, and it will hold its shape much better than without any of the CloudFill Fleece in it. You could use this to have a low profile, but still kind of a sturdy drawstring bag. So for that is when I would use the CloudFill Fleece. Now, if you are looking for a bag that will stand up and hold its shape, this is the FormPro. You can see in this case it made it round, but if I really wanted to keep it square, I could just top stitch up each side here. Let's get the ribbon out of the way. Top stitch up each side and around the bottom, and it would hold a square shape if that's really important. For me, it doesn't matter if it's square or round. What I liked about it is it holds its shape. This is a perfect bag for a knitting bag because you can put your yarn in it, and you can just pull one end of the yarn out. You can close this and you can knit or crochet, and it'll roll around in there and not get tangled on anything because the bag has some shape. You could also use this again if you're transporting something fragile and you need some extra padding. But the FormPro, when you add foam to a bag, you are going to get a much more structured bag than if you use CloudFill Fleece or nothing at all. So this was a test to see what each bag would look like with each product, so that you as the viewer could see this is what I will get as an end result based on what I use in my bag. All of these products are amazing. They worked great. They fused easily. But it's just, what is the look and the use of your bag when you pick one of these products to put on the inside? So, with all that being said, I hope you've enjoyed our first tutorial with Camelot Fabrics. I hope you will join me in making one of these really cool, handy drawstring bags. Again, once you start, it's really hard to stop. They're very easy to make. They're great for gifts, and they're great ways to show off some amazing fabrics. These are all from the Camelot Mixology collection. So leave me a comment below. What do you think about this new series? Are you excited to see what other projects we can make from the behind the seams product? And if so, is there one of these that really excites you and you can't wait to learn more about it? Or just leave me a comment and say, hey, I made your bag and this is what it looks like. So with all that being said, I want to thank you for watching. Make sure you follow us here on Camelot Fabrics. We also will be posting tutorials over on the blog. The first blog will be how to make these coffee sleeves. So make sure you jump over following the link below. to learn how to make the coffee sleeves, and we have so many more projects coming up in the next few months, so I hope you will join us on this journey to explore behind the seams.